Today I've got a 2007 Saturn Aura. Came from another shop. Unfortunately, it was misdiagnosed. I got paid to put an ECM in and program it. Did not fix it. We've got a harsh shift, etc. Other than that, it does seem to run okay. Starts and runs okay, etc. So I'm going to start where I always start. I'm going to check codes, and then I'm going to consult a wiring diagram, most likely. So checking codes, I've got an engine control module lost communication with transmission control module set as current. Body control module lost communication with transmission control system set as current. And I got an ECM crankshaft position system variation not learned. That's related to replacing the ECM and programming it. I was not able to complete the learn because we've got other faults stored. The electronic brake control module is also reporting a lost communication with powertrain system. Strange that it says passed, but every time I try and erase these codes, they come right back. So I'm going to immediately go look at transmission control module wiring schematics and data communication wiring schematics. Let's just see what happens when we try to communicate with the transmission control module using the scan tool. No communication. Okay, so that kind of confirms that not only are the modules on the vehicle unable to communicate with the transmission control module, we are unable to communicate also. So again, let's go straight to the wiring schematic for the transmission control module. So here's the wiring schematic for the transmission control module. We have a no communication. So first we need to ask, is the transmission control module awake and ready to communicate? We would need a ignition 1 voltage here when the key is on. We would need a battery positive voltage here at all times, and we would need 2 grounds here at all times. Also, we have communication circuits, so it's really simple: power, ground, communication. So if we have power and ground at the right times, the transmission control module should be awake and communicating. We also have an accessory voltage, but if you have this, this, and this, he should be awake and he should be talking on these circuits. Let's take a look at the data communication circuits as well. Here we have the data communication circuit for the high-speed LAN transmission control module right here. This is the suspect that is not communicating. Let's use some logic here and decide what we're going to do about it. One thing that we do know is that the engine control module does communicate. I was able to program it successfully. The brake control module communicates. The OnStar module I have not tried, nor is it reporting any faults, but I don't know if that matters just yet. Body control module does communicate. It is reporting that, this guy, and this guy are saying, I can't talk to that guy. Yet, communication is okay at the end of the line, right? This is the end of the line. It goes all the way through this module, through this module, through this module, through the body control module, and finally here is where the scan tool plugs in. So if the scan tool is able to communicate with the engine control module, it's almost obvious that the communication circuit is intact, and we need to go back to this diagram and most likely look at power and ground, because this control module is most likely not awake and not able to communicate because it's not awake. So most likely the easiest and fastest things to check here would be this fuse, and then if these fuses were okay, go straight to this control module connector, test power on these 2 points and ground on these 2 points. So there's the new engine control module that did not fix the vehicle. The transmission control module is way down there, so I'm going to have to remove some ducting, etc. to get down to it. Here's a view with that duct removed. Again, there's the engine control module. That right there is the transmission control module. Really not the greatest of access to it, so I'm going to have to disconnect that connector way down here, pull that connector up here where I can get to it and do my testing. So there's my ground. I'm going to check both of my powers right now. There's my hot at all times, and there's my ignition power. Okay, So I successfully proved that I have power here, and a ground here. And what I want to do is further prove that this control module may be faulty by proving that the data communication circuits are also okay. So let's go back to the data communication schematic. And I'll tell you a problem that I introduced to the system when I disconnected this module here is that the communication circuit is supposed to go through the module. So it's supposed to enter and then exit the module and continue on. So when I disconnected that, what I did was I disconnected the ECM from the rest of the system, and I removed that 120 ohm terminating resistor from the system. So I think that the easiest possible way to test these circuits, which I already suspect are okay because the engine control module does communicate and program normally. I really suspect that these circuits are okay, but if I really wanted to be sure, I could connect this one back in, thus completing the circuit. And what I need to do is take an ohm meter at terminal 6 and 14 of the data link connector, and I should see about 60 ohms of resistance across those two terminals. And that would prove that the wiring and the terminating resistors, etc., is all okay, thus proving a faulty control module. I'm going to add that if we test across 6 and 14 right now with the transmission control module disconnected and thus that resistor out of the circuit, we should see a 120 ohms. And with everything connected, we should see 60 ohms. That's a discussion for another day. That's Ohm's law. We can get into that another day, but that's what we should see with our ohm meter. So this is resistance across terminal 6 and 14 with the transmission control module disconnected. I told you we should see approximately 120 ohms because that's what the diagram said is inside of the body control module. And when I reconnect that transmission control module, we should see pretty close to 60 ohms. Reconnect the transmission control module. And here we are after reconnecting the transmission control module. We've got approximately 60 ohms, just like we were expecting. The schematic says that the terminating resistor is inside of the engine control module further on down the line, thus proving that the communication circuits in and out of the transmission control module are good, and we have a faulty control module. Here we are a couple days later, old module and the new module. There is no apparent damage or really visual indicator at all that there's trouble with this module. The only thing that I did see was some gaps in the sealant down here, and given the mounting location of this module, I would wonder if there's maybe a moisture problem, or it got smacked with some road debris, or maybe it just failed on its own. You never know. There is a core charge on it, so I can't pry it open and look further. So I'm gonna have to just install this, get it programmed, and get the car fixed. Okay, so check it out. This is after I've installed the new transmission control module, but before I have programmed it. We're gonna see if the scan tool will now communicate, which I believe it will, hopefully. It is now responding. Let's see what it's got. Lost communication with engine control module. I'm not even going to worry about that right now because this module is not programmed at the moment. But the fact that we are now able to communicate with the transmission control module using the scan tool is a very good sign. It means we've done something right. So all I need to do is move on to programming the control module and then finalizing the repair. Here is the programming screen. The fact that SPS2 has also been able to successfully communicate with the TCM and pull calibrations, even though it says unrecognized, it did respond and it is ready to program. So that's another good sign that we now have transmission control module communication. So I'm going to move forward with the programming. Here we go. Good sign. We are now writing to the transmission control module. No errors thus far. Okay, so this is after the successful transmission control module programming. Start her up. Looks like we do still have a check engine light, but I do not see the service traction control message, so may have to check the codes and see if there's any lingering problems. So I went ahead and did a master code scan. Looks like we've got a code in the ECM. Crankshaft position system variation not learned. Now, I told you earlier I was not able to learn the crankshaft, the CKP variation. I was not able to learn that because of the stored faults. So I wonder, now let's go into the powertrain system. Go ahead and command the CKP learn. Module setup. The engine may not be warmed up enough for this though. Let's see, is the parking brake on? It is now. Go ahead and continue. Yeah, we're not up to temperature yet. Please stand by. Let's see. Yeah, I do have engine coolant temperature data. So probably a little longer and we'll get there. Okay, we hit that minimum temperature. I'm gonna hold the pedal to the floor. That should have been enough to do it. There we go. It learned this ignition. Now the check engine light is now off. So looks like this car is fixed. Okay, so in summary, we had a faulty transmission control module. It was replaced. It is now working. We decided that we could not communicate with it, and we could communicate with the engine control module, which is further on down the line. So we decided that most likely these circuits were okay, and that we needed to focus on the transmission control module circuits themselves. We went and tested to confirm that we had power here, here, we had ground there, and we already suspected that these were okay, but we checked them anyway. Here's the pinout view of that transmission control module connector showing we've got our ignition hot, our battery hot at all times, our communication circuits, and our ground, and we verified they were all okay. Replaced, reprogrammed, did that crankshaft position learn, and we are fixed. Thank you.